Still preparing. Okay, we're live.
Okay, thanks, Ian. And thanks everyone for joining the March 16th meeting of the Environment Subcommittee. We have three bills on the agenda. Um, One is for discussion purposes only. That's HB 925. We'll discuss the sponsor amendments, my amendments, as well as Delegate Grammer's proposed amendment. Um, um, but otherwise we'll discuss and be able to consider House Bill 870 and House Bill 1196 as amended in both cases. So with that, Kristen, do you want to discuss 870 and if you can bring up the reprint?
Yep. Well, looks like I have to close. Okay, I had all my windows open thinking I could just go from there. Let me see if I can share my screen and change my windows in the with the shares. Let's see.
Okay.
Well, actually, I think I can go right to 870. Yeah, and then I have all my tabs there. Okay, this should work fine. So House Bill 870 came in to address large buildings that would ultimately be subject to the building energy performance standards. We have amendments that changes the approach from requiring building code requirements for new construction. Instead, the amendments would set up a notice requirement. So within 10 business days after a county or municipality accepts a permit application for a new building that has a proposed gross floor area of 35,000 square feet or more, the county or municipality must provide notice of the permit application to the Department of the Environment. And then there's the requirements listed there of what should be included in that notice.
Okay. Um, so the notice provision is is the bill at this point. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions about the amendments and these are the chair's amendments?
That's correct. Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep. The
Yes.
sponsor of the bill. Yep.
So any questions about these amendments to House Bill 870? Delegate Baylor,
Move the amendments.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions about the amendments? All right. All those in favor of the amendment say aye.
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 Opposed?
Respectfully, no.
Okay. Before we get a motion on the bill as amended, Delegate Morgan, do you have a question?
Could you please tell me if any of the amendments have addressed the concerns of all the opposition?
The only opposition that I heard that was dropped was from the Maryland, the builders. We didn't reach out to anybody. I know that the chair just notified me after he submitted his amendments that with these amendments, the builders don't no longer oppose the bill.
The builders, but not the realtors?
Well, I mean, we didn't reach out to them. The requirement now
so-
isn't on the buildings itself. The requirements are now a notification, administrative notice from the counties of permit applications to the department. There's no requirements being placed on the buildings.
Okay, I'm gonna vote no then, like dog or grammar, please.
Okay. On the bill as amended, is there a motion?
Move the bill as amended.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, so that is
4-2.
4 of us opposed, Delegate Grammer, Delegate Morgan? Is that
No,
correct?
please.
Okay.
Wait, is Delegate Holmes counted in that?
I'm here. Yes, I
Okay.
vote
Oh,
aye.
Delegate Holmes, you're here too. Okay, great. Are you,
I vote
how say
aye.
you on the bill?
I vote aye.
You vote aye. Okay, so 5-2. Bill passes as amended. Okay. Okay, so let's now go to House Bill 1196 as amended. Kristen, if you could pull up the amendments for that bill.
Um,
I guess they
oh,
were,
it's not part of my, hold on one second. I thought it was in my, queue to come up. Let's
these
see.
are we adopting, I mean, the proposal is to adopt the amendments as Senate Bill 940 passed.
So, yeah, um, Delegate Long submitted amendments that we had, that were drafted in his name, but he later followed up with an additional amendment that the senator was incorporating. So we're just going to use that reprint. I don't have a reprint for, the House bill. So what this bill does, it's striking all the regulatory requirements, and we'll get to the end of the reprint. And so the amendments require MDE to develop an action plan for the enforcement of standards for secondary maximum contaminant levels to address water discoloring, taste, and odor at community water systems and non-transient, non-community water systems. The action plan must include a listing of the presence and concentrations of secondary contaminants in community water systems and transient, non-community water systems, a draft approach for the enforcement of standards for secondary maximum contaminant levels, a summary of the regulatory enforcement action for secondary maximum contaminant levels in place in other states, decision matrix, including the feasibility, benefits, and challenges of enforcing secondary standards, an evaluation of the potential costs that would be borne by the water systems. The department also must consult with stakeholders, and I'm trying to scroll down. Oops. So it lists the stakeholders that the department must consult with in developing the action plan. By December 1st, 2026, the department must report its findings and recommendations to the General Assembly.
Okay. So, so again, the amendments are the bill at this point. The rest of the bill is struck.
And we also have an
And-
amendment to add Delegate Howard as the second co-sponsor.
Oh, right. Okay. Um, so, so the sum of the sum of the bill is that the MDE shall develop an action plan for enforcement of standards, et cetera, at community water systems and non-community water systems, and to report to the legislature within, let's see, by the end of next year, by the end of, no, end of this year, right. Delegate Baylor.
I was gonna ask Zach a question. I see him on the call. Is MDE, or I see Jeremy too, or is MDE good with this?
Thank you, Delegate. Yes, we worked with Senator Henson's office on these amendments, so we are all good.
Great. With that, Mr. Chair, I would move the amendments.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Any further questions about the amendments, which again, Kristen, do include these text amendments and then adding a co-sponsor, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Any further questions about the amendments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. The bill as amended, is there a motion?
Move the bills
So
amended.
moved.
Okay, this sounds like there's a second. All those in favor, the bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, bill passes as amended. Thank you. Okay, House Bill 925, again, just for discussion purposes only of the amendments. First, we'll start with my sponsor amendments, and then Delegate Grammer will give you the floor to discuss your proposed amendment. And at this point, I would like to call on Zach Schaefer of MDE, who really is the sort of resident expert on PFAS and is instrumental in helping draft these amendments. These are amendments, I should say, I mean, the sponsor amendments are ones that were approved by Tripoli on the Senate version of the bill. And so, Zach, I don't know the best way to review the amendments? Would it be to, we did send out a summary of what the bill as amended does in sort of a Word document. Would that be helpful, or would it be better to review the reprint, in your opinion?
I defer to the committee on their interests and how much detail you want to get into on it. I can give a top line of the flavor of the amendments and sort of how the at least the Senate sponsors arrived at these amendments, if that's helpful.
Sure. That'd be great.
So the amendments, there's several that are technical, further defining things like the difference between blending versus commingling. There's some amendments to provide greater clarity in the implementation of the bill. Substantively, the most significant amendment, I think, is the shifting of the dates on when certain compliance takes effect. It shifts back to 2028, the effective date of the land application restrictions at 25 and 50 parts per billion from what was originally proposed to take effect in 2027. And it also pushes back from 2 years to 5 years, the total timeline that a wastewater treatment plant or a sewage sludge generator would have to fully implement their mitigation plan. That feedback those amendments were based on conversations with the wastewater sector as well as with the state of Michigan, who has been implementing a very similar structure and approach, and indicated that it did take about 5 years for most systems, start to finish, to come into to reach the levels that they set, which were fairly similar to the levels that systems here would have to achieve. And it seemed reasonable to provide that flexibility. It also adjusts some of the dates of when different alternative management approaches during that temporary period while compliance is assessed, how they're when they're able to be used. So that's both commingling of sewage sludge for the purpose of reducing the levels of PFAS, and also reducing the rate of land application for biosolids that are determined to be above that 25 part per billion limit during the period while the generator is bringing their limits down. Finally, the last change had to do with the notifications and setbacks around sources of drinking water that was in the original bill. There were some practical implementation concerns with the initial approach. And so it's been amended to be that the department will set in regs an appropriate setback from sources of drinking water, and that the land applier will be required to notify the farm, the receiving farm, and any adjacent property owners and the local government officials in the jurisdiction where biosolids that contain PFAS are being land applied. With that, I will pause, and Vice Chair Guyton, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, Delegate Guyton.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Zach. I do have a question. I think I just heard the answer, but I wondered about the process of conversation, because I think this is one issue on which, and maybe there will be more, on which Delegate Grammer and I actually agreed during the hearing, which is that we weren't comfortable with the 25 parts per million. We wondered when and if and why that could not be lowered. Can you guys talk a little bit about why that's still considered acceptable contamination levels?
Yeah, Zach, do you want to take the Vice Chair's question about the sort of the tiering and saying that anything 25 or under is okay?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer as best I can. So, I mean, that is not a number that's derived based on sort of a specific, health-based assessment of, what happens below or above 25 parts per billion. The EPA put out its draft risk assessment last year, which evaluated risks, at 1 part per billion. But 1 part per billion is not a feasible level at which to remove PFAS from biosolids at this point. I'll also point out that it's draft and subject to change, and that the specifics of how and where biosolids or land applied means different things for the scenarios where that contamination, may enter water sources, the food supply, et cetera. The level is based on conversations had between the sponsors, the advocates, and the industry representatives over the last year. It's roughly similar to the guidance that MDE issued in August of 2024, which set tiers at 20 parts and 20, 50, and 100 parts, and which is also based on Michigan's land application guidance. It's really, I would say, designed to, set guardrails to prevent, sort of the most extreme contamination now. It's possible that when EPA issues a final risk assessment, that there may be more information to fine tune that, bring that down. I do think that it's a good start for now, and it's roughly twice the state mean when we look at the mean of all the water systems based on the data that we have from 2025. So it's about preventing the worst contamination. That's the best I can share.
Sure. Thank you. And I hear you. I think it seems to be a number that you guys think is doable and that other states are adopting. It seems consistent with guidance, but we really don't know if it's a safe level of contamination. Is that what you're saying? There's nothing to indicate scientifically that that's an okay level.
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes.
Okay. And I guess I'll vote for the bill with these numbers in them. But if there is some way to phase in a more aggressive program, either in this bill in the future or to come back and re-examine that, I think we want to make sure that we're making the best decisions that we can for health, and by making more aggressive regulations that may help that industry move towards meeting those goals. And I hear you saying that they can't right now, but will they be motivated to do more R&D with the goals at 25 parts per billion? Or do we really need to be more aggressive?
I think those are, is it okay if I take a second to provide some further information? I think those are great questions, and I do think that is where the industry is headed. Just a few things I'll share is that the limit, will be the limit, but I think there's an incentive for systems will feel an incentive to ensure that they are well below that limit so that they don't come into contact with non-compliance issues. So I do expect there to be action to ensure a margin of safety or a margin of separation from that 25 part per billion limit. We do see much lower levels in general across the state. That doesn't mean we don't want them to be lower. We want them to be, as close to non-detect as possible. One of the things that I've also been interested to see is just over the last year or two, and certainly the last year since I've been here at MDE, seeing collaboration beginning amongst the utilities, both in Maryland and Northern Virginia, and with MDE and Virginia DEQ. We've started a regional biosolids and PFAS collaborative conversation effort that's looking at strategies that different systems and states are using to bring those levels down. And things like there's a farm in West Virginia that WSSC and DC Water have acquired with partnership with West Virginia Tech to do experiments on how to bring biosolid or bring PFAS levels down. So I think that there's a general movement in this direction. And I think that it will be likely that the levels come down to well under the 25, but I do agree that it would be better to, over the long run, bring the levels down further than that to the extent possible.
And Delegate Holmes, before I ask for your question, a question for you, Zach. I know you noted that the bill is nearly identical to one moving through Virginia's assembly. So does it have sort of roughly the same tiering?
It has, yes, it has the same tiering, 25 and 50 parts per billion. There's some slight differences. Virginia's ours is PFO, the aggregate of PFOA and PFOS right from the beginning. Theirs is PFOA or PFOS for an initial period, and then it becomes aggregate after, I think, 2 years There's maybe some timeline differences. It's also possible that Virginia may adjust to be responsive to what our bill is. I mean, I think that our early action on this is what helped spur Virginia's action. I do see the approaches ending up being very similar. Yeah, that's the summary there.
Okay, thank you. Delegate Holmes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but I wanted to relate to the subcommittee a relevant topic, lead. When I first got into office, the lead standard was 10 micrograms per deciliter, and it took us a long period of time to get it down to the 5 micrograms per deciliter, only because we continued to watch to see how the decrease in the lead could be obtained. I would suggest that we keep a look on this PFAS level, much like we kept a look out on the lead levels to get it down to the current 5 micrograms per deciliter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Delegate Holmes. Very good analogy. Yeah, very, very helpful. Thank you. Okay, any other questions about these amendments? Which I should say again, the Senate sponsor really has taken the lead on this issue, and has worked with advocates as well as the industry to come up with these amendments. Through a lot of work and a lot of discussion, and Zach, also worth pointing out about how the bill will activate authorities under the Federal Clean Water Act that will allow treatment plants to require pollutant dischargers to reduce their PFAS levels. So that's a sort of key point about the bill. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And certainly to me, I think that is the most important part of the bill, which, I mean, to your question and point, Vice Chair Guyton, even utilities that don't exceed the threshold in their efforts to ensure that they don't exceed the threshold will be able to use that, the fact that these limits would now exist, which trigger and activate those Clean Water Act authorities. And so they would be able to go to dischargers in their systems that they're currently unable to compel to do anything, and compel them to reduce their discharges at their own cost, not at cost to ratepayers.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Zach. Any other questions about these amendments? Okay. Well, thank you. We will hold them. And now I want to invite Delegate Grammer, who has submitted a proposed amendment, which you all should have received as well, to discuss that. And Delegate Grammer, if you'd like to share it on screen or just discuss it.
I can
whatever
share it on
works.
screen if he doesn't have it hand. I do have it ready to go.
Okay. Would
Thank
like
you.
that, Delegate Grammer?
That would be perfect. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
So let me start by saying I really love the sentiment of the bill. I think that the sponsor amendment, it tightens things up a bit, and I like that a lot. But I am also on the same page as Delegate Guyton here. If you remember, PFAS is basically, and I've really enjoyed learning a lot about this session. PFAS is essentially poison, and I wasn't aware we were pulling this out of such large industrial sources and essentially putting it on people's food. As drafted, if you recall in the testimony, it didn't actually change kind of the action we're taking with where this goes and how it's applied. And as a matter of practice, it sounds like, we're up against practical measures. You can't feasibly burn it all. You can't feasibly put it all in a landfill. So the question is, what do you do to actually put some kind of enforcement mechanism in place so that we're doing what we can to make sure all the actors are doing what they can to ensure this is distributed in it as healthy as a way as we can right now. So what this amendment is, this is a liability amendment. I don't know if you all know this, but the biggest PFAS lawsuit is actually occurring right here in Maryland. And these issues, without bigger reforms, tend to be resolved with some kind of litigation, unfortunately, because someone's health is damaged. And what this amendment does is puts in place that says the participants, if someone's actually injured due to PFAS, we have the liability standards in place to hold actors accountable. And I would encourage the subcommittee to remember that, you know, what's coming out of these wastewater plants especially is a giant economic resource, because you have groups like Synagro who essentially get fed a resource and get to sell that as fertilizer, knowing that there's poison in it. I'd also reflect back on there are other states that have prohibited the distribution to, for example, to, let's say, farmland. And when I asked about that, the response that was given is, well, they just ship it out of state. So I don't, even if the bill passed, and I love the sentiment of the bill, I don't think this really tightens this issue up enough in a way that ensures that all the actors are doing everything they can to act in a way that protects people's health to the end. So if we adopt this amendment, I'm all in. I just want to make sure that the liability is in place if somebody's health is actually damaged. So with that, Mr. Chair, I appreciate you and the subcommittee entertaining me. It sounds like we're going to take some time and look this over.
Sure. No, thank you, Delegate Grammer. Yes, I mean, we'll hold any action on both sets of amendments. I mean, both sponsor amendments as well as your amendment until our next meeting, which I'll announce at the end, probably be Wednesday after bill hearings. But in the meantime, any questions about Delegate Grammer's amendment? Okay. Well, seeing none, then again, we're going to hold House Bill 925. In the meantime, you know, between now and the next meeting, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to Kristen, to me, to Delegate Grammer, and we will take it up again at our next meeting, which will be, we do have bill hearings on Wednesday. So as of now, we'll, you know, our next subcommittee meeting will be after bill hearings. But Vice Chair Guyton, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just a reminder, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder to everyone on non-energy utilities, they are waiting for us, and please go there directly.
Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
point. All right. Well, with that, we will adjourn. Thank you, everyone. And again, stay safe.